Now, one of the bigger advantages of building your own app with FlutterFlow is that you don't really need to write code. You can simply drag and drop different components, wire them up to different actions, connect to a database, and you're pretty much done. Another big advantage is that you have access to lots and lots of different templates that you can use to make your app unique. But even with all of those benefits, chances are you may want to customize your app by creating some functionality that FlutterFlow does not offer out of the box. Unfortunately, that's relatively easy too. And so in today's video, I'm going to be showing you all the ways that you can customize your app to make it truly unique, truly easy to use, and production ready. Now, before we begin, as always, all the apps and all the resources that I demonstrate on this channel are going to be available to view and or clone from my Patreon page. And if you're still not a member of our amazing, rapidly growing Patreon community, then you can learn more about it and perhaps become a member via the link in the description below the video. Now, FlutterFlow is a very powerful and easy to use app builder that makes it relatively simple and straightforward to build just about any kind of an app you want without writing a lot of code. But still, there are some situations where you want to customize your app. Perhaps you want to add a feature that is not provided by FlutterFlow out of the box, or you found a really cool widget that you want to use in your app, or maybe you had a developer build some custom functionality for their app that you want to use inside of your app as well. Well, fortunately, customizing your app is relatively straightforward and doesn't take a lot to do it, but still there's some important concepts that you need to familiarize yourself with. And I remember when I first got started with FlutterFlow some years back, I was a little confused because I wasn't sure which functionality to use when in order to customize my app. Now, with FlutterFlow, you chiefly have three ways that you can customize your app, and these are custom functions, custom actions, and custom widgets. And before I show you how to apply these concepts to make a truly customized, production-ready app, let's first talk about these concepts and what exactly they do. And so I went ahead and created a diagram to make it easy for you guys to understand where these functionalities come into play and how do they help you customize your app. So in the middle here, we have our app flow diagram. So we have the user here, we have the app's UI, we have the app's logic, and we have the backend. All of this is provided to you by FlutterFlow. And then in these other boxes here, we have some of the ways that you can customize your app. Now, the first way that you can customize your app is by using a custom function, okay? So a custom function is the simplest and easiest way to add some custom features, some custom logic into your app. And the biggest thing with custom functions is that a user never sees that. They never interact with this at all. The next one is custom actions. Okay, now custom actions is similar to custom functions, except now the user is directly interacting with this specific functionality. And last but not least, we have custom widgets. With custom widgets, you are creating your own little mini apps. You're basically building a custom UI. You can also build a custom logic, and you can also do some backend interactions as well if you so desire. And you can even connect it to a backend as well. All right, so now that I've given you a high level overview of some of the ways that you can customize your app, let's jump into practice and let me show you a simple app that I built that showcases all of these concepts. All right, so here's our app, and on this screen here, we are displaying a little mini currency converter page, okay? And so we are displaying all the currencies here, and we have the current exchanges, and the idea is I can click on a specific currency and I can enter a new value, and all the currencies here are going to be recalculated as well. So let's say I click here on US dollar and I enter 2. I hit save. And now all the currencies have been recalculated. Okay, so they essentially have been doubled. Okay, so now for, $2 is 1.84 euros. It's this Polish zloty. It's this Turkish lira, etc., etc. Now, behind the scenes, this functionality is made possible by using a custom function. There are no custom actions here. There are no custom widgets, just custom functions. And so if we jump back into our app, you can see that this is the screen here. And the way this works is we essentially have a currency type that contains name, symbol, and rate here. And we also have these currencies here. I have some sample currencies in our app state that are used to initialize, so that we are displaying, initial currencies when the app loads. And then what happens here is when the user presses on this, we display a new dialog box that essentially lets them enter a new value. And when they enter a new value, all the values are recalculated, okay? And that is done via a custom function. And so if you take a look here, we have the values here, and this is displayed using this custom function called getFactor. And so if I edit this, it's a very, very simple custom function. It just takes the value and multiplies by the factor, okay? Because there's a factor, a multiplication factor. When the user starts the app, the factor is 1. But if they enter a new value, we automatically recalculate the factor. And that's how all the new values are recalculated. But the most important takeaway here is that this type of functionality is done with custom functions, okay? We're not using custom widgets. We're not using custom actions because we don't need to do any of that. We just need to recalculate something, and that is done via a custom function. And so the user never interacts directly with this custom function. This custom function is something that's hidden from the user. So if you take a look at this diagram here, we have this custom function. It essentially extends this logic component, okay? FlutterFlow gives you logic out of the box. All of that is done by logic because after all, you can build a functioning app without writing custom functions because you have logic that's provided to you by FlutterFlow. But custom functions are a way to extend this logic. It's a way to do something extra that you don't have when you're using a stock FlutterFlow app. And so doing some calculations in the background, doing some multiplications or, maybe encryption or anything of that sort beneath the surface, something that the user does not see directly, this is how you know you need to be using a custom function. Now, in this next scenario, I want to show you a situation where we are forced to write our own custom actions. There's just no way to do what I wanted to do without writing custom actions, okay? And so on this page here, we have a list of some movies, okay? So we have Oppenheimer, we have Barbie, we have Inglourious Basterds, we also have the year. And so we're displaying a list of movies. And you also have this little area here where you can add a new movie. Now, what's interesting here is that this data is not being pulled from Firebase, is not being pulled from Supabase. It's being pulled from Pocketbase. And so if I head over to my Pocketbase instance here, you can see that I have these 3 movies here, and this is where these movies are being pulled from. And additionally, this is also what happens when you add a new movie. So if I add a new movie, that movie is going to be added here. And so let's say I enter a new movie, Rambo 3, somewhere 1985 or something, and I say add record, and as you can see, this movie has been added. Okay, so now you're seeing this new movie here. And if we go back to movies here and I refresh it, we should see that new movie here. And as you can see, Rambo 3, 1985. Now, why do we need to be using custom actions? Well, the reason we need to be using custom actions is because we don't have any built-in FlutterFlow actions to do this. FlutterFlow supports Firebase and Supabase, and also SQLite out of the box. It does not support Pocketbase. And if you're not aware, Pocketbase is a great high-performance database backend. It's a very, very lightweight database backend. It works really, really well. And FlutterFlow does not support it. And that is why we need to create our own custom actions. And so if you head over to this area right here, to this custom code, we, under custom actions, as you can see, we have two custom actions that we needed to code. Specifically, we have get records and we have add record here, okay? And so these two custom actions enable us that behavior that I showed you. They enable us to pull up the records to show them in that first part of the page, in the top part of the screen. And then they enable us to add records. Okay, so we have this add records and get records. And how exactly does this work? Well, if you head over to our Pocketbase here, and you are viewing this table here, this collection, if you click on API preview, you can see that Pocketbase provides an API for you, okay? And this API can be coded with Dart, and Dart is the language that you use to build your Flutter or FlutterFlow apps, right? FlutterFlow is a builder that uses the Flutter framework, and Flutter framework uses the Dart language under the hood. So everything under the hood is written with this Dart programming language, okay? And so Pocketbase has this Dart API that you can do to pretty much do anything, to connect to your backend, to list records, search, to, create, update, delete, etc., etc. You can do anything that you want. And because FlutterFlow does not have these built-in actions, we have to write our own actions. So I basically took the code here and I went back to my app and I pasted it in here. And I also took advantage of these custom types. So I called it record type. It's basically a movie type. And we are storing here the movie name, the movie year, and these custom actions, they pull data from my Pocketbase instance, and they create these types here. So this custom action actually gives us back this record type, okay? And that way we can display it, we can do anything that we want. And what's cool about it is that if we come over here, I'm making a call when this page loads, right? So as you can see, I have two actions. And the first action is a custom action, right? So we have this custom action here. And a really solid giveaway that you need a custom action is when you're building your app and you're doing a flow, basically, a list of actions here on this screen here, and there's no action to do what you want to do. You know that you need to create a custom action. So I know, for instance, that if I'm using Firestore, I don't need to create a custom action because there's an action right here. If I'm using Supabase, if I had it enabled, then I would be able to use all of this here. But because I'm using Pocketbase, it's not there. So in this case, I know that I need to create a custom action. Okay, so as a result, under custom actions, you see that we have add record and get records. And so when this page loads, I execute get records and I update the app state. Okay, that way, when the data is ready, because when the page loads, the data might not be ready right away. So the user is going to see like a blank page, a blank screen, and you definitely do not want that. And so what you want to do is you want to pull this data from app state, but you want to feed that app state. You want to load that data into that app state as soon as that data is available. And so initially this page might be empty, but as soon as the data is available, the user is going to see this data automatically filled in, and the page is going to rebuild automatically as well. And this is exactly what's happening here. And by the way, if you're a member of our amazing Patreon community, you're going to have access to this entire app, and you're going to see exactly how I build it, as well as all the other apps that I built on this channel. So definitely check it out and consider becoming a subscriber. And so this is this part here. As you can see, this list view here, we are pulling it from this app state, which in turn is populated by a custom action when this page loads. And this is the pattern that you want to be shooting for. This is a really, really solid and tested pattern. This is what you want to be doing anytime you want to populate data from a database when the page loads, when the app just loads. And in this section here, we just have some simple inputs here. We have the movie name, and the movie year input. And when the user clicks on add record, guess what happens, right? We open it up, and once again, we have the actions, and we have a custom action called add record, which is something I had to build because it's not provided by FlutterFlow, unlike Firestore, Supabase, and SQLite. And so that's what we're doing. We're adding this record, and we are redirecting the page so that you can see this record being displayed here. We're essentially refreshing the page. And this is this add record custom action. Very, very simple. We connect to our Pocket-based instance. We create this new record, and we just add it to our backend. Very, very simple and very, very easy to implement. And with these two custom actions, we essentially added support to FlutterFlow for Pocket-based, which it didn't have before. And if we go back to our diagram here, you can see that we have this custom action here. So the biggest difference between custom actions and custom functions, and I know many people get this confused all the time, is custom actions is something that the user deals with directly. You know, if I press a button and something happens, that's a custom action. Okay, that's not a custom function. You cannot execute a custom function via this action. So if I have like a button or something happens or a page loads, I cannot add a custom function in there. And that is because custom functions are beneath what the user interacts with. The user never interacts with custom functions, whereas they're always interacting with actions or custom actions. And so when the user interacts with this button, or they do something with this input, or this page loads, this is an action. And if that action is not provided to you by FlutterFlow, you need to create your own action, and that's called a custom action. Last but not least, I want to show you the third way that you can customize your FlutterFlow app, and that is with custom widgets. So on this last page here, we have a very, very interesting and a very useful custom widget. And to make you see it and appreciate it in full glory, we need to expand the screen. So if we expand the screen, you can see it right here. Now, this custom widget lets you build a Kanban board, essentially that Trello type board, or if you use Notion or many other tools, they have this Kanban board. And the idea here is that you can take an item and you can drag and drop it from one column to another. And this is very, very useful and very applicable if you're building some kind of a productivity app. So for instance, we have 3 columns here. We have the to-do, we have in progress, and we have the done. So let's say I start out with 3 things in my to-do column, right? So these are the 3 things that I need to get done. And so over the course of days or weeks, I basically drag and drop these items here. And when I do that, I'm also seeing some feedback here. Okay, so the app knows that this is happening, and I can go ahead and move it in here. And now I have 3 things that I'm working on right now. They're still not done. None of them are done, but at least we're getting closer. So now I can drop it in here. I get this message. I drop it in here, and I have 1 more task left to finish. And once I finish it, I get a message. Congrats. Take the rest of your day off. Okay? Now I press OK, and I'm happy, and I can go to the beach and relax. Now, this UI, this Kanban UI, you've probably seen all over the internet, all kinds of apps use it. This is not possible to do with FlutterFlow as is. So if you, create an account with FlutterFlow, you start building a new app, you don't have access to this specific functionality. This is awesome functionality, but it's not part of, built-in kind of stock FlutterFlow setup. And in order to enable this functionality, in order to provide it in our apps, we need to use a custom widget. And so as you can see, a custom widget essentially gives you a mini app, right? If you take a look at this, you may think that this is actually part of FlutterFlow. You may not even realize that this is completely separate, because there's lots of things happening. The user sees it. We have, drag and drop functionality. We have all of these things happening. And you may think that this is actually provided by FlutterFlow, when in fact it's a custom widget. Now, with custom widgets, you can make rather complex app changes. You're essentially building your own little app inside of a FlutterFlow app. And so if you take a look at this diagram right here, you can see that a custom widget is basically a part of the UI, but that's not all. Not only is it part of the UI where the user is interacting with it directly, a custom widget can also have its own logic, and it can also connect to its own backend. And that is because in FlutterFlow and in Flutter, everything that you see on screen are widgets. And so if you take a look at this left-hand panel, you can see all the things here, right? And these things are widgets, right? A column is a widget, a row is a widget. All of these things are widget. Essentially, a FlutterFlow app is nothing more than all of these widgets pieced together using a special way, right? Some widgets have other children. Some widgets do not have children. Some widgets are at a higher level. Some widgets at a lower layer. All a FlutterFlow app is really a bunch of widgets placed in a particular way. That's really what a FlutterFlow or a Flutter app is. Nothing more, nothing less. And so when you go out and create your own widget, essentially a custom widget, you are at liberty to do anything and everything that you want. You can have drag and drop functionality. You can have cool animations. You can display a video. You can display an audio. You can, have a browser window. You can do anything that you want. It's the most comprehensive, but also the most complex way that you can customize your app. And so, generally speaking, you're not going to be using lots and lots of custom widgets. And that is because FlutterFlow already provides you with lots and lots of widgets to get started and start building your app with. Because if it didn't provide any custom widgets, then what would be the benefit of using FlutterFlow? FlutterFlow is great because you have a ton of widgets to get started with. But just like how I explained before, there's still lots and lots of functionality that is not provided by FlutterFlow. And that is because FlutterFlow cannot anticipate what kind of functionality that users or developers might be interested in. For instance, this Kanban board is something that was created and quickly became popular. And as a result, somebody decided to build a widget that you can use in your Flutter apps. And that is exactly what I did here. And so you can head over to pop.dev and you can discover lots and lots and lots of widgets that you can leverage in your FlutterFlow app. And as a result, you can create any kind of an app that you want. You can get started with FlutterFlow as is, and then later on, you can discover, hey, I want this Kanban functionality, or I want this other functionality, or I want something else. And chances are somebody has already built that, and that may be available on pop.dev or on some of these other sites. Or if it's not yet available, you can use ChatGPT to help you build it. And that way you can build the exact app that you want to build. And so if we go back to the UI builder, we go to this custom code section here. And as you can see, I have this Trello board here. And this is a custom widget that gives you this Kanban board functionality. And I also adapted this custom widget to give us these interesting notifications that you saw. For instance, when you move all the items to the right-hand column, so meaning that you finish with everything, we get that beautiful notification. And the way that we do it is by first having the custom widget tell our FlutterFlow app that the user has moved all the items to the done column here. And here's where I'm counting. So I'm saying if the toGroup ID is done, then add all the items. And then here I have a check. When there are 3 items in this column, we want to say congrats. And then in my app here, if I go to this third page here I have a callback that essentially is listening for messages from this custom widget and taking an appropriate action depending on what's happening. So if we open this up, here we are checking. If the message is congrats, we want to show an information dialog and say, congrats, take the rest of your day off. Otherwise, we are showing a snack bar. So as the user is dragging and dropping various items, we're going to be displaying a snack bar. But if the user happens to move all the items to the done column, we're going to be showing this information dialog box. And as a result, we have this nice UI feedback to the user. And obviously, you can take this custom widget and modify its behavior to your heart's content. The custom widget that I'm using is called appflowy_board, and you can find it on pop.dev. So go ahead and check it out on pop.dev. Simply Google for this widget and you'll be able to use it in your apps in order to build the exact app that you're looking to build. And so these are the three main ways that allow you to customize your FlutterFlow app, namely custom functions, custom actions, and custom widgets. Custom functions are used whenever you need to add some custom logic to your app. The users never see or interact with custom functions. Custom actions, on the other hand, are created whenever you need to create a custom action, basically an action that the user is going to be interacting with. So if you're connecting to a backend that's not supported by FlutterFlow, for instance, with Pocketbase, you need to create custom actions. Or maybe you're doing some custom redirection, or you're doing anything that is not available by FlutterFlow out of the box, you need to create a custom action. If, on the other hand, you're looking to customize your app to such a high level that custom actions nor custom functions are not really sufficient, chances are you need to create your own custom widget. And this is essentially where you are at liberty to create your own little app that lives inside of an app. And that is because you can create your own UI, you can have your own logic, and you can even have that custom widget connect to your backend as well. And so depending on what kind of app that you're going to be building, you may use one, two, or even all three of these methods to achieve the desired results. Now, watching this video and helping me explain all of these concepts are definitely helpful, but the best way to get started and really master these concepts is via practice. It's essentially rolling up your sleeves and trying out different things, whether it's building your own custom actions, your own custom widgets, or tinkering with an existing app by adding custom functions. And the easiest way to do that is by cloning this app that I have in front of me, because, you know, viewing this app and listening to me is nice, but you're going to be on a completely different level when you see this app in front of you, and you'll be able to kind of modify it and see exactly why I did what I did. And you'll be able to do just that when you join our amazing Patreon community. Because when you join our amazing, rapidly growing Patreon community, you're not only going to get access to this app right here, you're going to get access to all the apps that I built throughout the time I've had this channel. And so if you watched me build a particular app on this channel, whether it was a couple of weeks ago or a couple of months ago, that app is going to be available for you to view and or clone from my Patreon page. And at the time of recording this video, I have over 160 apps that I built throughout the time I had this channel. They're all available to view and or clone on my Patreon page. And I built all kinds of apps in all kinds of different niches that do all kinds of different things. So regardless of what you're trying to do, whether this is an app that you're working on right now or an app that you're planning to build in the future, chances are I've done it before. And so you can get started right away without reinventing the wheel and without unnecessary pain and struggle. But that's not all. When you join our amazing Patreon community, you're also going to get access to extra content such as Q&As, live streams, behind the scenes content, and our Patreon supported masterclass series, where I do deep dives on different things that our community is interested in learning more about. So these are things like apps, tools, different concepts, basically anything that the community votes on and they're interested in kind of learning more about it. Once we have a vote, I go out and record a deep dive, an extensive, comprehensive video that lasts almost an hour in many cases, that talks about this specific topic. And then I also answer various questions from our community. And that's not all. When you join our amazing Patreon community, you're also going to be supporting this channel and supporting my work. And that is the best motivator for me to continue kind of doing these videos and teaching you guys the power of no code. And so if you've gotten any value, in any of my videos, and you are interested in kind of leveling up your knowledge of no code, you're interested in moving further, you're interested in kind of building more apps, maybe starting a business, starting an agencies, or whatever have you, then you definitely are going to enjoy being inside of our Patreon community. And so if all of this sounds like something that might be interesting to you, then definitely take a look at our amazing, rapidly growing Patreon community and consider becoming a member. And you can do just that via the link in the description below the video.